live from the road, inside the Clear2 Mortgage Sprinter van. This is Road to Close, the show where real estate meets real talk, hosted by mortgage pro and deal maker, Paula Postalokis. Every week, agents, lenders, investors, the power players who move the market, we bring them here, straight to you, unfiltered, on the road, and ready to close. You're listening to Road to Close. Buckle up.
Another episode of not Clear to Close, Road to Close.
You got to get a clear to close.
You got to get a clear to close to get you got to get the road closed to get the clear to close. It's a whole thing. What's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning in. Today we've got a very special guest. We've got Mr. Brian Vieaux, president of MISMO. Everybody that's a loan officer out there knows MISMO. They use the file. Just so the audience understands, I'll actually have Brian explain what the MISMO is. How are you, Brian?
I'm good, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, bro. Long time.
It has been a long time.
It's been a while. A lot has changed in your life.
Both of our lives. Right?
Yeah.
Lots changed. Before we hit record, I shared that you were one of the first live podcasts I ever did.
That's interesting.
In a professional studio, and now we're in this roaming studio, driving around the great state of Michigan.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
things have changed. We've upgraded it. It's cool doing it out of the Sprinter van. It's just nice to go, come to your place of choice instead of, you come to a studio or whatever it may be. But anyways, so tell the audience, just so they understand, what is a MISMO file? What does MISMO do? What is we know a lot of people in the industry know what it is. The layman doesn't, but we also don't know what else it does.
Right. So most of us in origination and loan origination are familiar with MISMO because none of you that are watching, listening, who have originated a loan have never done a loan without a MISMO data set.
That's right.
You just don't know it. So, think about the Fannie 3.4 that you're uploading to your lender or to underwriting. That's a MISMO data set.
That's a MISMO file. Yeah.
Right. So MISMO is a nonprofit that exists and serves the mortgage industry. And so I talk about MISMO being by and for the mortgage industry.
Yeah.
So we are the industry's nonprofit for standardization.
Mm-hmm. For digital standardization.
That's it. Digital standardization. So we just talked about one artifact, the Fannie 3.4.
Which is what we know of.
That's what you know of.
Right.
But there's 200 plus standards that are MISMO standards that have been created over the last 25 years.
Oh, wow.
MISMO has been around for 25 years.
Wow. So there's 25 data sets 200 data sets that you guys have come up with to standardize data in the mortgage industry.
Yeah. So there's virtually nowhere in the loan manufacturing process that literally from point of sale all the way through servicing, loan delivery, where there's not a MISMO standard today.
That's wild.
Around a set of data.
That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. And you started at the company not too long ago. You took the position how long ago?
This is week 5, so
we got you early, dude.
Yeah, tomorrow will be like 6 weeks official. I started on the Thursday before the MBA annual, so the Mortgage Bankers Association's annual conference.
Yep.
It's kind of the Super Bowl of conferences for the mortgage industry.
Yep.
I started the Thursday before that conference.
Wow.
Pretty wild.
That's pretty wild. Did you go to the conference?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hit the ground running there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, Brian, with MISMO, at the center of the digital world of mortgages, what is the next leap when we talk about the digital mortgage? Is it AI automation? Is it something else entirely? What do you see as the next evolution?
Well, right now for MISMO, there's 2 standards or 2 initiatives that are really critical to the industry and to everybody that's in the industry. And so one of them is around AI. We'll come back to that in a minute.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about that.
There's a lot there. the other one, which I think for every mortgage company, this should be really important, because every mortgage company is regulated.
Yep.
Depending on how many states you're licensed in, you could be dealing with 1, 2, 40, 50 states, in
Right.
terms of regulation.
Right.
So absent a standard for how the states request information from you as a lender, today the practice is state of Michigan sends a checklist of information. State of Illinois sends another separate checklist. It's probably different.
Right.
They're requesting data in a certain format with these column headings and these cell labels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, the underlying data is pretty much all the same, but it's all labeled and packaged differently.
Got it.
So if you're a multi-state lender today, you probably have to have a full-time person that all they do is package up and send data to the different states that you're licensed in for these audits, right?
100%. Yeah. Then it gets kind of time consuming.
And then you're wrought for error because you're labeling things differently for the state. So the Mortgage Compliance Dataset, MCD, is the latest standard that's in the process of being published by MISMO. We're in this comment period right now for the industry.
Okay.
On December 4th, the comment period closes, and that becomes the newest standard, the Mortgage Compliance Dataset.
Wow.
So
that'll alleviate some of this paperwork and maybe just all this other stuff that we've got to deal with when it comes to states, right?
Yeah, I think this is phase one of what will be a longer term adoption at the state level.
Yeah.
So what's cool about this particular data set and how it's come together, and this is a little bit of inside baseball for the audience, but that's why we're here.
There we go.
How does a standard become a standard in our industry? It's not like MISMO just says, we're going to go create a standard and we do it on our own. We're a small team. There's only 6 of us in MISMO proper, but we have hundreds of volunteers that come together across the industry, subject matter experts from all different mortgage companies, sizes, shapes, channels, et cetera. And so in this case, this MCD came together by mortgage lenders, mortgage originators, their legal compliance people being at the table, technologists, point of sale, LOS, compliance technology vendors being at the table. And then the most important, I'll say the most important because this is where it all kind of comes together. The regulators actually sat at the table. So
important to have the regulators there, dude.
So now we create a standard where all these parties had input along the way and agreed upon the standard. And so at the end of the day, for a standard to get adopted, in this case, this compliance, this MCD to get adopted, we need somebody to carry the baton from the regulator side. And that's the CSBS, which is the Conference of State Bank Supervisors.
Man, you deal with a lot of acronyms.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But what's really exciting, and this is one of the first things I learned about as I came into this role, was, this MCD was well down the path. So I didn't have anything to do with the creation of it or the idea around it, but my background in lending, 28 years as a lender, this thing hit. I'm like, this is tangible. This is real ROI for every lender of every size.
Yeah, because it's going to alleviate manpower.
That's right.
It's needed.
Right? And when we talk about efficiency and AI, and it's not just about removing humans, it's reallocating that highest and best use resource, which is a human.
Yeah.
So instead of having them package data, now you can put your highest, your smartest resource, your humans, to work on a different, project or task or problem that you're trying to solve as a company.
Yeah, because as of today, for better or worse, humans haven't been replaced yet.
That's right.
We don't have, but I think the industry is going towards this, and you've got Rocket, you've got a lot of different companies working towards this. One click, click get mortgage.
Yeah, push button get mortgage. That was the Super Bowl ad way back when. That propelled all the point of sales.
Absolutely. And now, we're still not there.
No,
we still need a human. It's a very complicated process, the mortgage process. I don't know if it'll ever be devoid of completely of humans, but we can definitely find efficiencies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And AI, I think, is a big part of that.
And I'm very partial to the local loan officer.
Mm-hmm.
As I think about first-time home buyers, especially in my past life, that's kind of where I focused when I was at FinLocker, was on helping lenders and loan officers serve early journey first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
I don't see the average first-time home buyer ever not engaging with a professional.
They need guidance.
It's a, man, there's a lot going on. And
a lot.
I mean, new products. I mean, we might have a 50-year mortgage, right?
We talked about that last week. Yes. Yeah, that might be coming.
So, you know, if you think about it, you've got all these different options. Yes, maybe I can, you know, use AI to kind of filter down, but you still want an expert to advise on what is the largest asset that you're about to acquire,
Right.
and the corresponding largest liability you're about to take on.
Right.
I don't know that even I, as a current homeowner, am comfortable with doing it 100%, you know, AI. I want a professional there to advise me.
How important is security in the MISMO world, dude?
It's everything, right? Especially in the, you know, as we talk about AI, and AI is really this big catch-all term.
You say AI, but there's so many nuances within that.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about AI as a model, it's been around forever in mortgage. I mean, how long have you've been running loans through Desktop Underwriter and Loan Prospector?
Yeah.
That's those are models. That's artificial intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you think about the data structures that are put together to send a loan to DU or LP, it's very standardized. MISMO's in the middle of that. And the quality of the output is directly correlated to the quality of the input. So if you have bad data going in, you're going to get a bad output, a bad result.
100%.
So to me, standardization, and in this case, MISMO, plays a critical and crucial role for the industry going forward, and how we expand the use of AI. And I would even go a step further, because you kind of talked about data security. One of the things that we're focused on in MISMO today, and we're partnered up with the Mortgage Bankers Association on this, is creating the guardrails for the responsible use of AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just in the loan manufacturing process, but, you know, far left, you know, far to the left of a point of sale even happening when a loan officer is first engaging with a consumer and leveraging any kind of AI tools. We want to do that responsibly.
Yeah.
We all serve homeowners, home buyers, and consumers at large, but we also serve home financing, home ownership. And it just takes one or two, you know, bad actors at any given time to give us all a black eye. So one of the things we're focused on is working with lenders and originators and regulators to create an agreed upon set of guardrails for the responsible use of AI.
Mm-hmm.
That way we're, you know, as regulators come in and start looking at our business with that AI lens, we get out of the gotcha model of regulation and more in the collaborative, you know, start with transparency. What are the expectations? And then measure me against those.
Yeah. We're entering a whole new frontier of just different obstacles that we have to face in today's world, where they weren't there before, and we have different tools now to like overcome these obstacles. It's really interesting. It's interesting to me that MISMO is such a small team. There's only 6 of you guys.
So let's break that down, because the team is 6, and I'm team member number 6, the newest, the FNG as they call them. Right?
Yes.
I'm the freaking new guy.
Yeah.
And so while there's 6 of us on the team, we rely on this community. I think of MISMO not as a organization or a company, but as a community.
Okay.
And the community exists of consultants that work directly with MISMO. They run our work groups, so they are the facilitators of these problems. Think of a work group as a problem-solving body. And so a work group gets formed inside of MISMO when the industry raises its hand and identifies a problem.
Interesting. Okay. That makes more sense to me. So that we're drawing upon the population of professionals to kind of help move the needle.
Right. So, you know, UWM, we'll just pick on them because we're not too far from their office.
Sure.
They identify a problem, a big problem that they see in their company, but that's also industry wide. And let's just say it impacts brokers at scale.
Right.
So UWM raises their hand and says, hey, MISMO, this is a problem that we think MISMO should get involved with to help create an industry-wide solution. So what happens is we basically put out a call to participate to the industry at large, identifying and spelling out the problem statement.
Interesting. Okay.
And then we seek input and volunteers from the industry, subject matter experts, to come in and form a work group that then works and collaborates to create the solution for this industry problem.
That's wild.
So the MCD that we just talked about is a great example where another large local mortgage company identified this issue of creating these data sets for the multiple states that they're licensed in. And so a call to action was put out. Hundreds of people kind of gravitated to this problem.
They did.
This work group that exists today is, like I said, getting ready to publish the MCD, and it'll be done in less than a year, from kind of problem statement to the
implementation.
The producing of the standard. Implementation and adoption just starts to happen once the standard gets published.
That's so wild. It's interesting that such a small team has such a big part in the mortgage process. I mean, when we're talking about data and data security and all of that, it's really important. And you guys are in kind of the fulcrum of all that.
And I think I put myself in the shoes of a lender of any size, right? Could be a small single state, lender to a multi-state lender. And then I say, what should a loan officer be thinking about as it relates to standards? And why is it important to a loan officer? Probably on the surface, it's not all that important to the loan officer specifically.
Right.
But if I'm a loan officer trying to win business in my community, which I'm trying to win consumers.
Yep.
What better part of the story to tell is that I'm part of a company that, embraces standards that protect consumer data, protect consumer security, privacy, all that stuff. And that's to me, that's a big important factor that a loan officer should lean into when they're part of a company that is, supporting and embracing MISMO standards, as an example.
Yeah. Right now, AI is the big buzzword. How do you see AI infiltrating the mortgage process, the real estate process, the homeownership process? How do you see it being used? And do you see any dangers there, really?
Yeah. Let me start with a danger that I actually saw firsthand. So about 2 months ago, I was in a Facebook community group where a bunch of loan officers kind of share best practices, kind of like a virtual mastermind type structure.
Yep.
And a loan officer was in there bragging about how he was using ChatGPT to assess credit reports on prospective borrowers. Exactly. For the listening audience, Paul just he just had a heart attack.
And why is that though? Well, why is that?
Well, so I'm hearing this on this Facebook community group.
Yeah.
Because it was like a Facebook Live that was going on. I had the same exact expression. And I immediately knew this loan officer did not redact any of the privacy information, and probably had a really good output that came from ChatGPT around the analysis.
For sure.
But guess what? Joe Smith and Joe Smith's credit report is now in the ether.
Gone, dude. That is no longer private information, because unfortunately, OpenAI is in a private company.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if push comes to shove, they have to give that information out, or they could get hacked.
Yeah. So that's a very tangible example. But as I think about the inherent risks of tools, AI is a tool. If you're not using the tools responsibly, who pays? In this case, Joe Smith, consumer, probably had no idea that stuff was out there until he does.
Is there a security protocol that's out there that's kind of looking at AI and let's say, you guys gotta have your MCD, we have the MISMO file, the 3.4. Is there something that we could build that says if you don't pass these, if your security isn't bound to these standards, that you can't do X?
It doesn't exist today.
Right.
That's a void, and probably thankfully it's a void because we're so early You know,
Yeah.
I tell people, I think we're in the first inning of putting it in baseball terms, we're in the first inning of AI in mortgage lending,
100%.
Maybe the top of the first.
Yep.
And now's the time though to collaborate and build some guardrails around responsible use. They don't exist today, and absent a uniform kind of approach, we're going to have what's already happening in Colorado and California. Those two states have already enacted legislation that's specific to mortgage origination lending around AI. And on the surface,
I wasn't aware of that, actually.
a lot of people are not
Yeah.
until you get the audit, right?
Yeah.
But on the surface, if you kind of look at the legislation, that there's some things that you might scratch your head on, but what's absent is clear definitions of what is or isn't AI under this legislation.
So how do you define AI in the first place?
That's right. And as a lender, let's just say I'm an independent mortgage banker licensed in Colorado, and I run a loan through DU.
Well, is that AI?
Is DU AI?
It is.
It is. But if it is, should I, as the lender, be audited?
Be responsible. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Like, so who holds the baton on that one?
Yeah. So right now it's hot potato. It's probably going to start with the lender. If the state of Colorado in this case does an audit and deems that something is questionable or something is an issue around the use of DU under this AI legislation. So that's an example of why we think it makes sense for industry to be proactive and work directly with regulators now on creating what those guardrails look like, and then go out and get the adoption of those guardrails across all the states, all the regulators.
How important are APIs right now? Like, does MISMO have an API? Are they open source on any level?
Our standards, it's a great question. So
and the reason I ask is because AI is, if you have an API and you have AI, you marry the two, it's a very powerful combination.
Yeah, the whole concept of APIs is critical when you start to stitch together technology, right? Absolutely. And so as a lender, you don't have one piece of technology, you have a tech stack, right, that includes an LOS, maybe a POS, maybe a CRM, maybe some other tools. And so, the whole API construct allows you to connect the dots between those platforms. Absolutely. And kind of create more of a seamless process that way. I don't see APIs going away. I think what's been fascinating to watch, and again, I go back to my prior life at FinLocker, we were playing with a AI tool for design and development of features in our product.
Oh, wow.
And it was all API driven, right? So it's like, I don't know if you ever heard of this app called Lovable.
I use it every day.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
So before we would spin up a feature in FinLocker, we would build it first in Lovable.
Yep.
Because with 3 or 4 prompts,
you can build.
You're built.
Yeah, just so the audience understands, Lovable is an AI platform where you can tell it what you wanted to build, and it will code and build and give you an actual working MVP right there on the spot.
Vibe coding.
You call that vibe coding? Yes. I'm actually a big vibe coder.
I'm not, but I'm an idea guy.
Yeah.
And so I would be sitting on a Saturday and I'm like, oh, we should have a calculator that does this, this, and this in our app.
Yep.
And I would just write that prompt into Lovable and bing.
And it created it.
And then hand it over to our product team, and then they would bang around on it. And if it had legs, we would then lean in and develop it.
That's wild, man. It's wild what we can do today with a computer, a few ideas, and we can build a whole app.
Yeah, I think if I was advising young people today, like real young people, like, going into school, coming out of high school, going into college.
Yeah.
Prompt engineering is where it's at right now. Like, if you can master prompt engineering, like, the world is your oyster right now.
Well, actually, what if you just use AI to do the prompt engineering for you?
So you would engineer your own avatar, bot, whatever.
Yeah, you can use AI to say, hey, I've got this idea. Can you create a really robust prompt for me to use in Lovable? And it will do it.
Absolutely. But you start with the prompt. The prompt.
The prompt is always very important. Prompting AI is going to be very important. Understanding how to prompt, how to use AI. Prompting is really, really much more important than people think.
Oh yeah,
you get something wrong in your prompt, you're gonna have a bad product.
that's right. So I think about the loan officer, right?
Yeah,
Who's facing off with the consumer. They are arguably one of the most important components in home buying and home financing is that
100%.
local financial professional, that loan officer. You as a loan officer should be proficient in prompts because
Yes.
every
Yes.
consumer is unique.
100%.
And so that uniqueness you need to convert into prompts that give you a good quality output.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me switch gears a little bit and just ask you about the current climate, the mortgage climate. With affordability so beaten up recently, what do you see as the single biggest barrier blocking first time home ownership right now?
It to me, it starts with inventory. There's just not, has not been enough, and there still is not enough affordable
Inventory.
houses for sale.
That is fair.
So we can stand up, portable mortgages and 50-year. You might as well throw a 100-year mortgage on there if you want. None of it matters if there's not affordable homes to be bought.
Yes.
And so we've got to, as an ecosystem, we've got to, I don't know if we can build our way out of this fast because that just doesn't happen fast.
No.
And so
that's a multi-year project.
How do we free up homes that otherwise would be sold? And so maybe there's some legs to this idea of portable mortgage, allowing people that are sitting in a 3%, rate on a $160,000 home to be enticed to move that,
move that debt or whatever, that mortgage to a new property.
So conceptually, I love the idea around that.
Yeah.
In practice, it's nearly impossible to execute.
I don't see it happening.
It can't happen retrospectively, right? You can't go back in time and I'm sitting on a 2 5/8 rate on my home. There's no way I can move the balance of that that mortgage to another property. But going forward, if I bought another home and I was in a rate, then you could build products to do that. So
Yeah.
I think we have to find ways to unlock people's willingness to sell those homes that are otherwise affordable first-time homes.
Because right now they're at 3%, 3.5%, 2.5%. And I call it the vapor lock. They're not going to move.
It's free money. Why would you? Yeah.
They're not leaving that beautiful loan that they have at 2.5%. Now they could turn it into a rental, which some people have, but then the problem still lies that you're going to buy the same valued house and have double the payment.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. you guys picked me up in front of my house. And so, I got a 2 5/8. If I wanted, the same house,
yep.
Forget what the price of the house is going to be, depending on where I buy it. But I'm staring at almost a 2.5 times higher rate.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Why would I do that?
It's crazy. Brian, is there anything else that you want to hit on before we go into 3 questions, the random 3 questions that I think about on air and I ask you?
No, I think, for the audience that, again, are local financial professionals, I don't think there's ever been a better time to be in the industry. And that's kind of contra to what a lot of people are facing.
So we're right on the edge.
We are, but the number of licensed loan officers has continued to kind of fall. And so if you're in it today, this is a great business to be in.
Yep.
But you have to be expert. You have to be a professional.
You gotta set yourself apart.
You have to, this is where AI can be your friend or your foe, because you're not going to lose business to AI, but you will lose business to loan officers and lenders that are leveraging AI.
That's it. That's the difference. It's the people that are leveraging the AI that are gonna move forward, and it's the ones that are ignoring AI that are gonna be left in the dust.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Just left in the dust. Brian, tell the audience how they can get a hold of you.
So I do a lot on LinkedIn. So
you are a LinkedIn god, dude. You are. I can't match your LinkedIn prowess.
It is. It's turned into for my prior life at FinLocker. It was our biggest and best marketing channel.
Yep.
And I'm starting to leverage it for what I'm doing at MISMO. So that's the place to start, is on LinkedIn.
Yep.
And then, I'll throw it out there. It's first initial last name @mba.org if you want to email me.
There you go. If you can figure out how to spell Brian Vieaux,
It's easier than a pasta lockup is.
100%. All right, let's get into 3 random questions.
Okay.
Mr. Brian Vieaux, if you're deserted if you're stranded on a deserted island, what are the 3 things that you are must-haves?
Oh, probably AI. I only need one thing if I have AI.
AI, how do I start a fire?
I'm a morning banana guy, so I want to have bananas.
Okay.
Got to have water.
Okay.
That's 2 out of 3. I could live on water and bananas. What would be my
I
third?
could live off of water and bananas, the man said.
Yeah, you could do it.
You could.
You could do it.
You could.
There's species that do that already.
Yeah.
Number 3, that's a great question. My wife.
There you go.
Yeah.
She'll love to be on a desert island with you.
Yeah. I'll probably get conked over the head.
Yeah, there you go. Next question. If you could live during one period of time other than our own, what would it be?
Oh, man. Great question. I would love to go back and live in the, right at the end, right when the automobile was being invented and created.
Okay.
That
What was that? Like the 1890s?
Something like that.
Right?
Long ass time ago.
That was a long time ago.
But just, we talk about how AI is going to, change the world. Go back then and think about
Cars.
just the difference between walking or riding a horse and being able to, driving an automobile.
Driving an automobile with 20 horses under the hood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And we think about how small the world is today.
Yeah.
Back then, absent a way to get from Royal Oak to Novi, Michigan, it never happened.
No.
You never left, your little
town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it would be fascinating to experience life when my town was my world, and then how that opened up and transitioned.
I bet you people were against cars like they are against AI
This
today.
is a fad. This will never last.
This is we don't need to get you guys spend less time out on the road, more time at your house. All right. Last question. If you could trade places with one person on this earth for a week, who would it be and why?
Shohei Ohtani.
Shohei Ohtani.
I mean, come on. That dude is a Cy Young pitcher.
Yep.
And a Triple Crown hitter.
I
mean, come on.
It's like you've got everything.
There's nobody in sports that dominates the game like that human being.
On both sides.
Yeah. Like the whole game. He dominates it.
He is
crazy.
The game.
Yeah. He's, people talk about Babe Ruth today. I mean, first of all, he wouldn't be able to swing a bat around his belly.
No.
Right?
No.
He wasn't facing 100 mile an hour fastballs and then 91 mile an hour
slider, right? All of a sudden you get a breaking ball at 80.
Yeah.
Right?
So Shohei would be, and not just because of his baseball prowess, because this is a guy that, literally was dropped into the United States.
Yep.
And he's had to adapt and adjust.
He's got a whole story.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's got a whole story.
It'd be fun.
I could see you doing that.
Yeah.
You would enjoy that.
It would be fun.
Yeah, you would enjoy that. All right, guys. Well, Brian, I can't thank you enough for doing the show. We could sit here and talk for hours about MISMO and the next big thing, but we'll have you back on and we'll talk some more.
I love it.
Thank you so much for doing the show, everybody that's listening. We'll be back again. Actually, next week we have a hiatus because of the holiday, but we'll be back after the Thanksgiving holiday, and we'll be giving you lots of great content from then on as well. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.